And at the end of the day, even political candidates or organizations or TV shows, if we do not include trans people to be part of the solution, we can't get a true solution that's sustainable.
Welcome back. Our next guest is the National Chair of Flux, a national network dedicated to raising the profile of trans and gender nonconforming individuals through innovative advocacy. Please welcome to the show Queen Victoria.
Woo! Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Your royal presence. I love it. Sorry, I just want to start off really quick. We're very honored that you're here as a trans sister. I'm beyond excited that you're here. And because I've never really gotten to know you personally, but we've seen each other at many events, can you share with us a bit about your journey in life to where you are now, the throne that is your life as Queen Victoria?
Well, thank you very much. Likewise, it's an honor for me to be able to see a reflection of myself, and I'm super happy to see that the Q agenda is being not only diverse but inclusive, which is beyond equity. It's really giving a voice. So thank you for being that voice for us. So I want to start off with that. My past is I'm born in the hood. I'm born and raised in the hood in Boyle Heights, and I still live in Boyle Heights. My upbringing was actually very positive. You're hearing on TV right now a lot about Dwayne Wade and his support of his daughter, Saya. And my message around that has been recently that, men, black men, and men that are people of color, Latino men, love their kids. It's society that creates the stigma. Mm-hmm. And coming from Boyle Heights and being loved by my mother and my father, who are of Mexican descent, contributed to me being able to go beyond survive to thrive, which is something that a lot of my trans brothers and sisters and siblings do not have. Right. So having that was the seed that grew into who I am now, and I wouldn't be who I am today without my parents, without my community in Boyle Heights, and without the trans community who has taught me and supported me and whose shoulders I stand on today. That's who I am in a nutshell, and I come from a long line of activists. My parents were activists too, Chicano activists who cared about our community. I live in Wyvenwood Garden Apartments, which has been threatened to be demolished for a long time. My parents were involved in saving it. It has one of the largest areas of green space in LA, rent controlled. So it's a place where especially Latinx and Latino community can thrive. And that's what pumps through my veins is the legacy of fighting for the little person, or the little guy, or I say the little person. I like to be gender inclusive, but in that sense, it's part of just being what being an Ortega is. So I love the fact that I have that legacy, and that my community has that legacy.
It's just so much intersectionality, and what a great example of it, that all of your identities are center stage. It's not just thinking about one at a time, but how one of our identities affects the other. Is there any advice that you have, because we have a captive audience at this moment. Is there any advice, because you said not just survive, but thrive.
Correct.
Do you have any advice to the people out there whose kids have just told them, and maybe it culturally contradicts and they don't understand intersectionality? What did your parents do so great?
So I think that one of the things that my parents did was go with their gut feeling of loving me unconditionally. Did people criticize them? Did people say, what did you do wrong? Did your child get abused? They rejected that narrative, right? I think that changing the narrative means interrupting that story and saying, no, I love my kid unconditionally.
Same kid as yesterday as they were today.
Correct.
Yes.
I think that's the main number one. I'm actually working on a book with my father, who's now 80 years old, around parenting from the perspective of a trans Latino parent.
Wow.
And for me, being a child and having my parents transition along with me, and the patience and the conversations that it takes. So I recommend that you continue to love your kids unconditionally. If you do just that, that's the baseline that will set them up to give them any resiliency they need to, deal with their first breakup. Yeah. To be able to just go forward and deal with whatever crap people might tell them.
Mm-hmm. And I think people forget that when changes happen and you come out and you transition, your family is part of that, and they have to go through that journey with you.
Correct.
It's interesting to see that you got such a positive reaction from your loved ones, which is so rare in the Latino community.
And how old were you when you came out? Or
So
when you came out to your parents?
I came out at 12, and then I started transition around 15 and a half, 16.
And that at that time, I want to ask a follow-up question to that because there's such controversy around how allowing younger people to transition, which I think we have a lot to say on that. So we have to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.
And we're back with more from Queen Victoria. We're so happy to have you here. There's so much that we want to talk about with you.
Yeah, so we were just before the break talking about how you came out at a young age and how your parents made it possible by allowing you to transition young, and that's such a controversial thing that's happening right now. But I think it makes all the difference.
Most definitely. One of the things that I had access to was Children's Hospital's adolescent medicine program that I actually work on with now as a consultant that really was focused on providing care and access to care for trans youth. Right now, many people don't know that there's legislation that is blocking or attempting to block access to care for young kids that are trans-identified. Luckily, those bills have died in I believe now it's 3 states that have attempted to do that, to legislate that prohibition of access to hormone replacement therapy. And the reality, it's futile efforts. We're here to stay. We're continuing to gain visibility and power, and we're not going anywhere.
What do you think in this times where there's so many fake news and we don't really know where to direct our attention sometimes? It's the main focus that we should have right now in regards to the community, to the trans community.
Well, I think the main focus, it goes back to what I had mentioned, is diversity, it doesn't always equal inclusion. So we talk about diversifying spaces, and then you kind of have placeholders and tokenized community. Really including people in the conversations allow us to be part of that discussion at the table. This is a great example, right? We're not talking about trans community from an aloof place. You're allowing us to have our own voice, and we're taking the space to have our own voice. When you do that, that's what true inclusion looks like.
Right. So one of the amazing organizations you're part of is Flux. Can you share more information on Flux?
So as was mentioned before, Flux is a division of AIDS Healthcare Foundation that's focused on raising the profile of trans and gender nonconforming community through innovative events and advocacy. And that's exactly what we do. We do upscale events in different major cities throughout the country to show that, one, we can occupy that space and that we can put together an event that leverages the microphone being controlled by people of trans experience and inviting decision makers, whether it's politicians, whether it's program directors, whether it's a school teacher or school principal, into the space to share humanity. When you connect at a human level, it's what changes people's hearts and minds. I just came back from the 66th convening of the Presidential Advisory Council on HIV, and I walked away with after 2 days with a significantly older gentleman, white, Republican, who we didn't see eye to eye politically, but we connected at a human level, and were able to at least have a discussion. And that's the thing that's not happening in this country. We're not seeing each other as human beings, and we're not connecting, and that's what's going to change.
I think particularly right now with the politics and the times that we are, I find that people are they're attempting to connect. And for somebody like Elizabeth Warren, for example, she read the names of all the victims, that had been murdered, trans, African American. But I see, for example, they go that step and they mention those names, but I don't see them bringing solutions to the problem, to really including the community on how to educate. Is there any candidate that you think is at least getting closer to really catering to the needs?
Well, one of the things that I'm jealous of everyone else is you get to be partial. As queen, I can't be involved politically or make a decision for any particular candidate. What I do say is have the conversations. Have the difficult conversations, even with people you don't agree. Who is representing your interests? And at the end of the day, even political candidates or organizations or TV shows, if we do not include trans people to be part of the solution, we can't get a true solution that's sustainable. I would add to that, value our experience. if you could pick my brain, I should be able to pick your pocket, right?
I love that. It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Well, I mean, thank you so much for having this conversation with us.